4. Disappointing national team policies. After Yao Ming took over in 2017, he made significant adjustments to the construction plan of the Chinese national basketball team. Due to China hosting the 2019 World Cup, there was less pressure on performance, allowing Yao Ming's policies to be implemented effectively, with the most representative being the Red-Blue national team policy. The Red-Blue team divided the national team into two teams, Red and Blue. This was done by having two head coaches take turns selecting the players they wanted from the roster, similar to the NBA All-Star team captain selection process. The initial intention of the Red-Blue team was to allow more players to participate in international games and discover potential national team players, but there were many problems in practice. The first issue was with the selection system of the two head coaches. Yao Ming chose an application system, where people who were interested in being head coaches could apply. In the end, only 3 people applied, and the 2 selected were both former national team teammates of Yao Ming, Li Nan and Du Feng. At the time, both of these individuals were relatively inexperienced coaches, especially Li Nan, who had no experience coaching in the league. It was only after becoming the national team head coach that he gradually developed with the help of many resources. Currently, Du Feng is the head coach of the Guangdong team in the CBA League, the team where Buzil played, while Li Nan previously coached the Jiangsu team in the CBA but was banned for 5 years due to possible match fixing in a game against the Shanghai team. Eric Bledsoe can tell you this story. The young coaches led to a high cost for the Chinese team in the 2019 World Cup, as they struggled after narrowly losing to Poland in overtime in the group stage and failed to advance after a poor performance in the final group stage match. Another obvious problem with the Red-Blue team was the team's cohesion. The main players played for a long time in the 2 different systems of the 2 head coaches and only started training together in 2019, especially with China's 2 most important NBA players, Yi Jianlian and Zhou Qi, not being on the same team. Another unexpected consequence of splitting the main team was seen in the 2017 Asia Cup. Due to only fielding half of the main players, China finished in 5th place, while Iran, who finished 2nd in the Asia Cup, climbed to the top of the Asian team FIBA rankings. Although China won the 2018 Asian Games with half of the main players, the Asian Games did not contribute to FIBA rankings, allowing Iran to maintain its status as the top team in Asia and gain a favorable draw in the 2019 World Cup. Even though they didn't win a single game in the group stage, Iran advanced to the Olympics by relying on goal difference, surpassing China, who won 1 game in the group stage, and securing a spot in the Olympics. Another consequence of the Red-Blue team was its impact on another important system of the Chinese national team at the time, the national team. The national team served as the second team of the Chinese national team, aiming to scout potential national team players. Unlike the Red-Blue team, the national team and the national team had a clear hierarchical relationship, with the national team mainly participating in international games without FIBA points. Another difference from the Red-Blue team was that the National Olympic Team and the National Olympic Team had different sponsors, with additional revenue of several billion. When the Red-Blue team was established, the sponsorship contract of the Olympic team had not expired, but in order to accommodate the Red-Blue team, the matches originally scheduled for the national team were transferred to the Red-Blue team. The Chinese Basketball Association organized some low-level matches to meet the sponsorship requirements of the National Olympic Team, but this also greatly reduced the commercial value of the National Olympic Team, and the National Olympic Team has not appeared since 2024. Even if we only evaluate the original goal of the Red-Blue team, which is to discover potential national team players, it is difficult to say that the effect was significant. In the 2019 World Cup, the main composition of the Chinese team clearly consisted of the core players from the 2016 Olympic Games, with 4 key players missing due to injuries in 2019, making the 2019 lineup have many new faces. Looking back at the big failure of the Chinese team at the 2019 World Cup hosted at home, it cannot be said that it was all due to the Red-Blue team. Zhou Qi, one of China's key players, was released from the NBA, and the Chinese Basketball Association did not create an opportunity for him to return to the domestic league, causing him to decline due to a lack of playing time. The Chinese team also underestimated the difficulty of the World Cup and did not pay enough attention to the impact of FIBA points. Additionally, there were injuries as mentioned earlier. However, overall, the negative effects of the red-blue team were very significant, and Yao Ming's policy has not been mentioned since. Not qualifying for the Olympic Games in the 2019 World Cup hosted at home, it is even more unlikely for China to qualify for the 2023 World Cup. The goal of the General Administration of Sport of China for the men's basketball team is to strive to qualify for the Olympic Games. In terms of various aspects, the efforts made by Yao Ming and the Chinese Basketball Association are still commendable. They brought in the former Serbian head coach, Djokovic, completed China's first plan, and recruited Kyle Anderson, who is Chinese heritage and has always been friendly to China. They also resolved the issue of Zhou Qi, China's strongest player, returning to play in the domestic league. Although China only finished 8th in the recent Asian Cup, the entire team was severely affected by the epidemic at that time, with only 4 players able to participate in training at one point. Therefore, most Chinese people still believe that they are the best team in Asia and have some expectations for the World Cup. However, things did not go as planned, and their performance in the World Cup was abysmal, losing by double digits in every group stage match, including a defeat by over 40 points to Serbia. Even worse, they were defeated by the Philippines in the classification match, directly leading to the loss of the Olympic Games qualification playoff spot, which was the bottom-line goal for most Chinese fans. Objectively speaking, they certainly have excuses, with 3 out of 5 starters suffering injuries during the World Cup, and 2 of them unable to complete the tournament, including their best player, Zhou Qi. The planned player, Kyle Anderson, has not fully adapted to FIBA's game rules and has communication issues with teammates, but what most disappointed the fans was the highly paid world-renowned coach who favored the concept of height. Throughout the World Cup, he only brought 3 guards, and the majority of the forwards he brought had no ball-handling skills to meet the requirements. This coach showed a complete lack of understanding of the players' characteristics, as Hu Jinqiu, considered one of the best players in the Chinese league, was at one point not given playing time under his leadership. After the World Cup, despite facing public dissatisfaction, the Chinese Basketball Association continued to allow this coach to lead the team in the Asian Games held in their home country. Although the Asian Games did not contribute to FIBA points, this time it was a home game, and after the World Cup's disastrous performance, both the Chinese Basketball Association and the Chinese players needed a championship to boost morale. However, they failed again, being overturned by the Philippines in a near-miraculous comeback after leading by 20 points. The consecutive poor performances led some figures in the basketball circle to openly express dissatisfaction, such as the national team's meritorious head coach and current vice president of the Chinese Basketball Association, Gong Luming. Surprisingly, the Chinese Basketball Association did not terminate the head coach's contract, and Yao Ming even praised him as a bridge connecting the world in an interview. This world-renowned coach also lamented to the media upon returning to Serbia, citing policies restricting his player selections, such as the next potential NBA player from China, Yang Hansen, not being selected for the player pool due to age restrictions, and the use of the 48-minute system in the CBA league affecting players' adaptation to FIBA rules. While his points are not entirely unreasonable, they still do not change the fact that the Chinese national team under his leadership fell far short of expectations. After losing to Japan in a FIBA World Cup qualifying match in February this year, the Chinese team has not had a match for the next year, and this world-renowned coach is likely coaching his last game for the Chinese team. It is worth mentioning that this match was the first time since 1988 that China lost to Japan in the FIBA system. 5. Brief evaluation. Yao Ming has a high prestige and support from the top level, so his policies are always implemented. We do not need to doubt Yao Ming's passion for basketball, but his policies must be worth questioning. If you are a fan of Yao Ming, here are a few reasons you can use to defend him. Wang Dawei stepped down due to private life issues as a capable person. The epidemic affected China's basketball external exchanges, and China lacked luck in many key matches. However, this is not enough to indicate that his policy ideas are all correct, and it was purely accidents that led to the failure of policy implementation. As mentioned earlier, the basketball ecosystem in China is very different from that of the United States. If China wants to learn from the US, it must be selective and consider the circumstances. The policies of the red and blue teams seem too much like child's play. I just want to briefly introduce Yao Ming's specific work situation. This part of the content has all ended. The following are personal opinions. Yao Ming's main issues include the following aspects. 1. Unable to handle the relationship between the national team and the league well. This is reflected in his inconsistent policy ideas. Sometimes supporting the league will affect the national team, such as increasing the league time and reducing national team training time. Sometimes using the name of the national team to establish league policies that affect the commercial value of the league, such as limiting Asian foreign players. In Chinese public opinion, the national team's performance seems more important, so the best approach would be to try to lead the league's rules with the national team, such as allowing national team players to receive salaries exceeding the salary cap. Bundling the value of the league with the national team may maximize commercial value, such as turning the previously unpopular All-Star game into a national team training match using the selection rules of the red and blue teams. 2. Overly focused on quantity rather than quality in talent development. In simple terms, Yao Ming places great emphasis on the number of registered players, believing that increasing the number of players will solve many problems. However, for the national team, you typically only need 12 players, with only about 8 playing in a match and only 5 on the court, with perhaps only one player making a decisive impact. Therefore, if you want to improve the national team's level, the most important thing is not quantity, but quality.
To cultivate top-level players, the key is to tilt resources and improve training levels with targeted training. Yao Ming has done little in this regard, and although China has a talent pool, there is no support for players who come out of it, no specific training programs tailored to players in the talent pool, and no emphasis on introducing more scientific training techniques. The most direct manifestation is that Chinese players have very poor shooting ability, but there is no targeted introduction of shooting training techniques. I won't delve into other issues with Yao Ming here. I believe that for Chinese basketball, whether Yao Ming continues to be the leader of Chinese basketball or not, the most important thing is to manage player classification and establish corresponding training camps at all levels. If the national team is used as the standard, players can be divided into current national team members, potential national team members, and ordinary players, with resources tilted towards the former two. Specific player reports and training goals should be set for them, and training camps should be held based on different tasks, such as shooting training, to improve player abilities. Introducing advanced training programs for various training camps is essential. China does not lack enthusiasm for basketball, talented players, or basketball resources. What is lacking is the rational allocation of resources to allow talented players to truly fulfill their potential.